Today we'll go again through Advent of Code 2021, Day 4, Part 2. However, this time we'll try using the newly available API from OpenAI, their API for chat completion, and their new model GPT 3.5 Turbo with roles and so on. Simply to give you a background, if that's the first video that you've seen for me, I've been going through Advent of Code 2021 and trying to solve all the challenges with ChatGPT and Bing, and exploring where are the shortcomings of the model, where probably better prompting can help, etc. And I've been iterating on day 4 part 2 for my last few videos. Why I'm iterating so much on this is I already, even in the first attempt, I was able to solve the problem with 85% of the job done by ChatGPT and Bing. However, my solution then required a little bit work from me, some changing in the prompting. I needed to go back and forward to correct a code and so on, and I wasn't satisfied with that, and I thought that probably my initial prompting and so on, my initial approach wasn't working, and decided to revisit that and to try again to see is there a more efficient way of prompting. I changed my prompting strategy, which previously was simply to give as a question the first part of the challenge from the given day, after that some instruction, after that some code that was the final working solution, not necessarily the solution that I got from ChatGPT or Bing, and after that asking for the second part as a question, and again saying that I actually want to get that as a program, and waiting to get the program. This worked to some degree, but I was thinking that probably if I try to give the first part like a simply solve puzzle and simply ask only for the solution on the second part, that can help. It turns out that required almost as much prompting as the first one. It's very hard to save, help, or make things worse because of the nature of the problem, that every time you get somewhat random response and you couldn't evaluate is this really significantly better or it's pure luck. After that I tried to go with the different strategies. One of them was to simply use some additional instructions. After I did the first revision, I noticed that it's common pattern that it's had problems with certain parts of the code, and I was explicitly asking for this part to be fixed, etc. It didn't turn out to be working any better. After that, because I was playing with OpenAI API, did some of their tutorials and looking at what they were suggesting, they were claiming that their model is the most capable in Python, and I decided simply to ask this time for programs that are simply written in Python and get my Python programs as the responses, and based on that being able After that, to convert working Python program to a Go program, it didn't seem to work. I tried vastly to instead to have a little bit prompting back and forward between me and ChatGPT, using the input the task as it's defined in advent of code, and hoping to get some nicer summary that I will be able to correct easily. There were some failing parts. I tried with chat to correct them. There were still mistakes. I correct some of the mistakes myself, but then the code still didn't work. I did that with Bing as well. As you can see here, all the conversation, all the prompts, and it didn't work. And at the end of, I decided to, okay, I try all the things that I was thinking about. Let's move on to day 5. But meanwhile, OpenAI released their new API for ChatGPT, which is paid API, but still I have already account to OpenAI, and I'm paying for the things that I tried with DaVinci or in their generate API for images. I was paying already, and I decided to give a try of this API for our problems and see if will help. Now, brief overview of their API and why I actually decide to try that. First thing is that the API it's with GPT 3.5 Turbo and have one subversion that it's actually with the model as of date 3rd of March 2023, which is very recent. And I was thinking that might have some updates and to be a little bit different, hopefully better than the model that's available. And after that, I saw also that they're providing very interesting structure of your input. I'm assuming that the people that are watching this video are not familiar with their previous endpoints for completion, but they have, you can give your prompt, you can specify your model. They have a lot of models, and you can let me show how did it work. For example, Query is like a DaVinci but cheaper model. For completion, how it was working is you specify your model, you're specifying your prompt. In our case, that's what you paste to ChatGPT, and you can specify it max token size, not to get some humongous output. However, the models are capped. I think for this turbo model it's anyway it's available only in the version that it's capped to 4096 tokens, and all of their models are capped to this size except Code DaVinci, which is capped to even smaller output. And what you were specifying is actually this max token size, not to get too big response. Frequency penalties when it's using the same kind of word. For example, you want to generate a list of unique names for your new song, and when there was the same name more than once, you want to penalize the model, and it has this penalty parameter, in which when it's zero repetition, it's not penalized, and I haven't played a lot with it. The temperature is how stable is the output. The maximum value is 1, the same for frequency penalty and presence penalty. For presence, I'm not sure what was actually doing, to be honest. But the way that the previous model were working like that, previously, you have a prompt, you have a model, you specify the temperature, which can be taught as a variety, you specify some ways of penalizing repetition and so on, and I think some of that is probably if you try to train the model, because they have a scheme for training, and you pay a little bit more than when you use it for inference. However, that was what they had. Now they have these new models, which are for the Turbo 031, that is a snapshot of 1st of March from the ChatGPT Turbo, which we will try to use. Some information if you can fine tune it, what when being created, if the indices are allowed, and so on. As we can see, no, you couldn't fine tune it. You can sample, you can have work props, allows view. I'm not sure what does even mean. Is it blocking or it's returning like a stream and so on, all this stuff. They have their Whisper API that will be probably interesting for some kind of other videos, and they have their standard GPT-3 Turbo. As you can see, the difference between GPT-3 Turbo and this snapshot, it's nothing else than from the time from which the models are created. They're like milliseconds apart, or a second in this case, and for our purposes we'll use this model. This model is like a static model that will not change, and they're having this one that it's model that they will continuously updating for the time being, because when these models are created, it's like in the time frame of this video, it's like a few days ago. There's not noticeable difference anyway. But when we go more to the details how the new API is working compared to the previous one, if we go here, now they changed their completion endpoint with chat completion endpoint, which is interesting. And instead of previously they had this prompt up here, prompt that you slash everything that you want and separate it with some strange syntax, etc. Now they're supporting different roles, and in our case that's very interesting for us. Why? Because they're supporting 3 roles: one user role, one assistant role, and one system role. Which in the system role we are giving something like a background, what the bot would expect, what is that conversation all about. The user is what previously was our prompt, and the assistant is if we want to give some examples. However, I look at the OpenAI ChatML format. That's actually their chat markup language that they're using. And notice that in the system messages they're allowing these examples in which you can that's their internal language. I haven't yet tested, I'll test now, to provide system messages that are saying, okay, that's example from the system, that's example from the user, you need to do some stuff that it's like that. And for example, here the system is saying that that's translation from English to French and you should expect this kind of stuff. The user is putting as input, how are you? And we're getting comment, let's first, or something like that. I think I read that as German. I'm not French speaking, probably very far away from the truth. But here it's French translation example, and we are saying, okay, that are our system messages. You should play this role. That are the examples. Now we're a user, and we're putting that. Give us the reply. And as if you have watched my previous videos, you see that we were already handcrafting this kind of stuff exactly in this way in our prompts. We have like an answer, we have question, we have some instructions. Frankly speaking, I never thought of playing the role to say, okay, that's that, you will be this and this is something with coding and so on. But anyway, now we can do that. How we will do our demo will be similar to my previous videos, with the exception that we will do our interaction not by going to ChatGPT, posting, asking and going back and forward, but this time using their API and using their API not with grow request. I mean in the that will be hard to parse and so on, but by using wife view, which is Elixir equivalent of Jupyter Notebook. Why we are not using Python? Because I'm an Elixir developer, and for me it's easier to do this stuff in Elixir, and I have already demoed some additional stuff for my Elixir code. However, in my live view, however, I will paste off this stuff that I will use in my request in the GitHub repository in the prompts here, and again we'll test the final programs and so on here, and I will submit it. But here in prompts 1 HTTP request from live book. If any, I might publish in the live book at the end. I'm not sure. I think the number of Elixir developers, it's so to say Elixir very very small, but yeah, I mean, I might have in the Elixir live book there. However, here there is a lot of stuff with um, dealing with headers and so on. I have some kind of logic saving my requests in data walk. I have some parsing and truncating, have some internal stuff that is interesting for me, and of course I have here the secrets for OpenAI API key and so on. But yeah, let me know in a comment if someone is seeing this video and has interest to see the Elixir live book. It's very similar to Python. You can dynamically execute content. After that you can have a code block, have these messages, and you can see it, etc. You can open another browser and have it more than once. You can delete and so on. In our case, let's get rid of this message, because we'll use the message from the other place. Here, let's go back and look how my messages are, what format they have. I came up with having a system message. That's the system message that will give our model the background, what we are talking about. You're a prominent competitive programmer. That's our background. We have the solution from day 4 part 1 as our example user message 1. We have example assistant reply. That's simply like a string notation for Elixir. If you want to have multiple lines strings that are including for example three quotes, you can use this /s and so on. It's called CGO in Elixir. It's simply like another way of having these 3 quotes. As example assistant message, we have our working Go program. We're reading everything for input. After that we have, okay, now we want, that's our question, and we have instruction, please write Go program, blah blah blah. We already did that in our previous videos, and now we are building our message. And we're building not a single message like previously was with DaVinci, prompting to a prompt, but now we have this ability to have the whole conversation. We are following simply the specification here. It's how the Python code being called with create, what kind of model, and bunch of messages. And to be honest, in the specification, they're saying that they're supporting only system, user, and assistant. However, when I was looking in GitHub examples, I noticed that they actually in their that's OpenAI, that's in their GitHub repository 3 hours ago, they had this specification for their language, and they're supporting this JSON string format, list of dictionaries in their case, in which you have a token, you have this with the system, blah blah blah, what's their actually the message, and you have like a end of start of the next token and all this stuff in their language and how it is looking. Here I noticed that they have this with name, example user, example assistant for prompting with the shots. Is that okay? They're saying that that might not work. Anyway, that's like a few hours ago. I will try and we'll see if that stuff doesn't work. We'll simply put user and assistant and we'll play like that. Now we have our messages. Let's make a call to. We have our model. Do we? ChatGPT model. Yes. Okay, so far that looks fine. Okay. The what I expected. They're saying that yeah, we're looking at this thingy that you're saying that it's system, but it's not of one of our supported roles. Okay, it looks like they don't support yet this stuff in their API, which it's fine. I would expect to be something like that, and then let me give a try with the example assistant, example user. Again, that shouldn't work, but let's give a try. Yeah, it's not from them. Okay, then in our examples we simply will say okay, that's what the real user asked, that's what the system replied. Now we are asking this second thing, can you do it for us? Okay, interesting. And it time out. Why did it time out? Because we're using our libraries. It's too slow. And we never get a reply. However, we couldn't really we couldn't increase the timeout of our library in Elixir. Let me go to Elixir forum. I think I already asked for there in the forum this question, because I have actually this kind of problem for another case, and I think what people suggest me there is to use another libraries that I can do requests with, because I have another problems with that. Okay, I was explaining here what were my problems. Yeah, let me spend a little bit time and see how to make a post request with this library. I've never used it, but it shouldn't be very complicated. Body JSON body. I would like to how I can put the headers. Headers, blah blah blah, timeout. Okay, let's me install this library. It's Elixir everything. It's very easy. Should it be? We're going to our favorite notebook. Bam, bam. It's exactly now it's pulling the library, it's installing everything that we need for that. Seems like we need a lot of stuff. Let's look at how to make but where is okay, in our case here let's keep our model and having another block mid-rack, and we have our stuff more or less here. We want exactly the same kind of stuff. We have our model, we have our payroll. We don't want this base URL. Why is that done as that? Okay, in which case let me see how is this stuff done. Okay, I can say post request, very similar to what we already had in the other library. We need to have on these three things: the post request, our body, and we have our headers. And the most important part, time out. Is there example of using the timeout? It's by default 15 second receive timeout. We would like to make that 60-second time. I think somewhere here I had token size. OpenAI API timeout. We want to give okay, and now let's we have the response. Good, what's happened with this thing? Oh, it might not turn in. Did it complete? Okay, that's our response. We don't want to look at this header, and we have in our response we have body, and in our body we have our choices. And we can see that the total token sizes, the prompt token, and the complete tokens. Okay, that looks very promising. Let me see if that will be working. Body choices, choices, choices. Of course, we have only one choice. Let's get the head of that. Choices. Choice, and from the choice we don't have index and so on. I think that message, and from the content we can get content. What's wrong with that? It's messages and content. Now we have our program, but we need to, so to say, to parse it to valid go program. If I do this, let me, sorry about that, I'm not in design spring, but here if I do that not in Elixir, let me do that in Python. How can I parse this input to something that is code like? Let me go back to whitebook. Here I have my content, and probably let me open another block. I don't want to have another section. Instead I want to have another code block that I have the content. If I try to parse that as okay, I think that's actually, let's not do complicated stuff. I can simply go here and delete that. Go here, delete that. Go here and having code and how can I replace this with actually new lines to format that new line. Parsing that to something that is JSON, because content. Yeah, it is not valid JSON. It's simply this thing. How to parse program that is store as string and has ends. Yeah, let's I have this Go program as single string. Yeah, I love hop. Let me how could I parse it? Is there some online tool for that? Probably should use Beam. Impossible way to parse the Go program. Single parser. How can I do that? I think that I would be able probably to simply print it. More I'm thinking, why if I do inspect, not nice points. I can. Wasn't, silly me, not very smart, isn't it? It took me 100 years to came up with that not the smartest in class. Okay, now we have this program that looks promising. Let's see if this program will be working. Many programs so far were promising, but they did not work. Okay, we're getting 0. Doesn't crash, which is the winner board and the score. Okay, of this stuff looks very, very nice. Does it parse correctly the numbers? Yeah. Let me see this one. Okay, we have all the numbers correct. Let's see how it's iterating through the boards. Here at that stage we should have our boards. Talk. They look like quite legit. Probably to make it easier for debugging, I will use the test because it's a little bit smaller. That's a beautiful. Here, print line part. Okay, all the boards are there. We have the was index. We know that from the test program should be the third board should be the one that it's let's delete that Python. The third board is the one that should be returned, and let's see what it's doing here. We're having the only thing that I can see is here it's making, in my opinion, this typical mistake that all the programs were doing is here should, after finding the winner, we also want to, so to say, every time when we have a winner, we want to remove this board. We saw it in our previous solution was this kind of problem not stopping. We needed to do this kind of stuff here to simply every time when we get the winner, and we were doing that only if there weren't and that seems to be as extremely hard problem for the wording in the program. We're checking firstly, okay, the length of the board is more than one. Then we're going here and we're removing the board, and that's when we have a winner. We do that only whenever a board is a winner. We get rid of this board. That's when there are more than one. When we are else, we simply break or go to, as we score, to score, and here we can have score. That's one of the solutions that previous ChatGPT had. I mean, it's not a person should be too critical with ChatGPT. It's beautiful. And J is less then the board length, and here is JJ. In here we have bar track. In here on theory, we don't want to get actually the last. We want to know here, because we will have only one. Don't need this last index. We need to get but never use. We don't want last index, we have last number. And here, instead of going through all the numbers and all that stuff, you can do simply that. And I think that was doesn't seem like the correct solution. Why not? So and we have our, that's more than one, and when it's one, we know that our board is the winning board. Okay, instead of that, we can have none of that stuff, not having auto, not having even the given range, but having the board like that. Okay, but in this case we needed to break, have return. Okay, something like that would be our ideal solution. And when we get to iterating through all of them, having this and having this reset, obviously we should do that. We need to reset to start iterating from the beginning, and that's working solution. We already, I can see that with this new approach, actually the code is by no means worse than part 2, and I would say yeah, it's as ChatGPT and working perfectly fine. I expect in the future to use more of this model, and yeah, also hope that was kind of useful to you. Let me double check that it doesn't go out of index and something like that. 36975, 36975, that's the solution. However, the more interesting part is here, that now we can build this much richer interactions with the model. We can have the system, the user, the system, and so on. And I think that will help us to solve more complicated problems. And I expect in the future to use more and more this approach. And yeah, hope to see you in the day 5, this time using probably the ChatGPT API, because as I can see, it's more flexible and allowing for some control, and especially after that, if they allow what I can see they're planning to do with this name example assistant and so on, and having some not only system message that it's telling you something, but having some richer context, yeah, I can imagine that will improve dramatically the quality of the output. Anyway, thank you for your attention, and if you're interested to get access to this live book and so on, I think it's very specific for Elixir, but Elixir is very easy language to deal with. It's similar to Python and have Ruby-like syntax. Yeah, let me know. Thank you for your time and see you in the next video.